Greetings, loved ones. Let's take a journey deep within ourselves, because the novel and movie we are going to be talking about today ask a very essential question. If you looked like nothing, who would you be? The picture of Dorian Gray is about a young man whose portrait ages with the marks of his sins while he stays outwardly youthful. And The Substance follows a former starlet who, in her obsession with maintaining youth and beauty, turns to an injectable drug that creates a younger, better, hotter version of herself. The Substance and The Picture of Dorian Gray explore the willingness and complacency of our main characters in their longing for eternal youth. But the consequences of their obsessions are destructive to not just the body but the soul. Both works critique the moral decay that results from an excessive focus on outward appearance. The Substance follows Elizabeth Sparkle, portrayed by the riveting Demi. The film opens with the creation of Sparkle's Hollywood star, built from raw materials. I knew I would love this film from the opening sequence. The star premieres, shines, and eventually fades, mirroring Sparkle's own life. Fired from her Jane Fonda-esque workout show on her 50th birthday for being too old, Sparkle, feeling lonely, washed up, and useless, is offered a chance at rejuvenation. The Substance is an injectable drug that forms a new, improved version of herself from her own DNA. But every 7 days, she must switch between herself, the Matrix, and her younger, hotter self, Sue, played by Margaret Qualley. This film is something else, man. Truly a singular experience. I saw The Substance in theater, and if I'm being honest, I was too horrified to watch a lot of it. So let me please just congratulate the sound design, because despite not physically seeing much of it, I was still deeply uncomfortable the entire time. I have since watched it again on a smaller, dimmer screen in the comfort of my own home, and I don't know what level of freak you need to be to come up with that. The freak in question, Coralie Fargeat, is a French filmmaker known for her bold storytelling. The Substance marks her second feature film following her debut, Revenge, which also sparked a polarized response. Fargeat has talked about The Substance being a deeply personal film for her, reflecting on her own grotesque feelings towards herself as she reached 40. She harnessed that vulnerability and unleashed it in this highly effective body horror. Sue goes back to the studio executive who has just fired Sparkle, desperate for the validation of this man, even after seeing what he did to those proms. Sparkle, meanwhile, falls deeper into her depression. It is a proper D-hole. She's hate-watching television and binge-eating until the 7 days pass. It does not take long for Sue to begin misusing The Substance, and the Matrix, Sparkle, pays the price. The more Sue takes, the more Sparkle becomes undone. The film escalates to a point I will not begin to try to describe with words because it is such a visceral experience. There are no words for this sequence. This is visual storytelling. The pursuit of perfection leads to grotesque extremes. To be honest, it was a bit of everything that was related to the excess, to the gore, to the violence. The film's visceral violence mirrors the lengths that people will go to achieve that perfect appearance. The Substance has been talked about up and down, but luckily with a film this dense, we can just keep going. What I really want to focus on here is not the societal pressure, but the choices we make and our willingness to participate in this cycle that we know takes a lot more than it gives. A moment I love so much in this film is when Sparkle is first going to get The Substance. She has called a sketchy number, she goes to the sketchy address, and now she comes to this door that's like half opened vertically, and she has to crouch down like embarrassingly low to get under it. It is a simple yet highly effective way to show me how bad she wants it. The depraved choices she is making at every turn. Demi Moore expands on this in an NPR interview.
What really drew me to this was the exploration of not what the circumstances are, not what societal conditioning is, not what that collective consciousness of our agreement of that women's value diminishes as they age, that exists, that is changing but does exist. But what fascinated me is what we do to ourselves.
Social media and the constant presence of phones have increased our exposure to self-image, increasing the value of appearance. These social platforms have given us an ability to literally curate our images. In the same way Fargeat talks about framing and angle to tell effective stories. We curate shots that effectively tell our story. But the problem is that we are not stories. We are human beings. We are the running blood of stories. In the relentless pursuit of a curated image, we risk becoming nothing but hollow reflections of what we think others want to see, losing touch with the essence of who we truly are. In this exchange, we passively but willingly give up our inner selves for an image that will ultimately leave us empty. As Oscar Wilde puts it, every moment that passes takes something from me and gives something to it. While the movie, like many great movies, takes it to the extreme, I don't believe it is so extreme. Beauty is pain. A sentiment we now hear regurgitated with jest, but I think it is something that internally we do all believe to an extent. When I think about the cosmetic journey that a washed-up starlet like Elizabeth Sparkle has probably already been on, I do wonder if splitting her spine open on a black market drug really is that far out. It starts with shaving our legs when we're 10, 11, then it's wax. We're desensitized to that pain by the time we're 13, so we can start pouring it on our eyebrows and mustaches. Then what? Hair treatments, bleach, burns, now vampire facials. Then what? Black market products. Who knows what these celebrities have access to? New teeth? The normalization of veneers is so crazy to me. Your teeth get shaved down to these little nubs, and you have to constantly refill them. All these influencers who got veneers after one TikTok blew up. And the way these influencers talk about needles and Botox like it's a day spa. Injectables probably don't sound so scary.
You could go get a coffee and Botox today. It's like a normal thing in LA. You know, it's funny because it's like we go in through the back and they just like grab a random needle. They're like, sit down, I'll do it.
Champagne
like,
the whole time.
Yeah, you're not supposed to drink during it. Like it's like
LA shit.
This same culture celebrates you for getting a boob job or a BBL or a facelift. They celebrate your decision, your willingness to take your own unhappiness into your own hands and throw money at it. And need I remind us, there are no risk-free surgeries. These are all low risk, BBLs arguably, but you are always taking a risk going under the knife. So when I line it all up like that, the substance doesn't feel too extreme at all. In Sparkle's willingness to sacrifice her true self in exchange for an image that will never satisfy, we are forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The more we invest in our appearance, the more we risk losing our inner selves. And knowing that appearance fades, we lose both. The unsettling body horror reflects our current culture, one that celebrates the transformation of flesh without questioning the cost, only celebrating the results and the choice. The willingness to participate in this cycle, the willingness to hand over our humanity for the illusion of perfection, is deeply revealing of what you value. Oscar Wilde is a deeply beloved and thoroughly influential 19th century Irish writer, famous for his ever-present wit and tact. What I refer to and read for this video is the unabridged version, the uncensored portrait of Dorian Gray from the Harvard Press. The explicit differences between the original publication and the unabridged version are the warmth with which the artist speaks of Dorian. The text is far too risque for the time. Even after editing to condemn crumbs of homosexuality, the original publication of the picture of Dorian Gray was still used against Wilde as evidence to convict him of perversity. Wilde was convicted to 2 years in prison with hard labor. He died 3 years later in exile. A tragic and unfit ending for any human being, let alone a human being who contributed so much to culture and the evolution of literature. The aesthetic movement in fin de siècle England, as interpreted by Oscar Wilde, revolved around the ideal that the utility of one's actions should be to create the maximal amount of beauty and pleasure in one's life and nothing more. According to Wikipedia, the term fin de siècle typically referred to the end of the 19th century. This period was widely thought to be a period of social degeneracy. The picture of Dorian Gray opens in the garden of Basil Hallward, the painter. Basil talks with his friend Lord Henry about the subject of Basil's newest painting, agreed upon to be his masterpiece, Dorian Gray. Lord Henry and Basil, the artist he is, of course, are people fascinated by the beauties of life and share in conversations about such. Now, Lord Henry, he loves to yap. Dorian Gray is described as a charming young man, delightful in appearance and charisma. He is light, spry, full of love and life, and charming to all. Basil does not want Lord Henry to meet Dorian, as he is too dear to him and wants to keep him all for himself. But Dorian enters for the final sitting of the masterpiece, and Dorian is just the ray of sunshine he has been described as, and Lord Henry sinks his teeth in, complimenting Dorian on his youth and beauty, noting how it really is all that matters. And beauty is a form of genius, is higher indeed than genius, as it needs no explanation. Lord Henry talks Dorian up and down, filling his head with his ideas on life and aestheticism. Lord Henry warns that without an enthusiastic embrace of aestheticism, one will perpetually anguish with the desire of precisely what he must deny himself, all for the sake of propriety. He fluffs Dorian with compliments on his youth and beauty and then reminds him of its brevity. When the painting is finished, Dorian, already in an emotionally fraught state thanks to the ramblings of Lord Henry, is overwhelmed. The sense of his own beauty came on him like a revelation. Dorian is immediately resentful of the painting, remarking that it will always be young and beautiful, meanwhile he, the painted, shall age and grow old. He becomes immediately insecure, asking his friends, "How long will you like me? Till I have my first wrinkle, I suppose?" Dorian makes a wish right then and there that the opposite was true, that the painting would age as Dorian maintained eternal youth. And unbeknownst to him, the wish comes true. Dorian carries on in his life, worshipping pleasures and beauty above all. He falls in love with an actress and confesses his love, only to then revoke his love when he finds her performance unsatisfactory. The young actress's reasoning for her bad performance being, now that she has felt real love, she can no longer act. It made the passion unreal. But that is not good enough for Dorian. He loved her because she was an artist. Dorian leaves her anyway, and the girl commits suicide. Dorian comforts himself with the belief that Sybil's story is more valuable this way, beautiful in its tragedy. Dorian reflects on the painting then, and notices a touch of cruelty in the mouth. Cruelty? Had he been cruel? It was the girl's fault, not his. He had dreamed of her as a great artist, had given his love to her because he had thought her great. Then she had disappointed him. Dorian's complacency is clear here. He feels no responsibility for his actions, nor does he reflect on the consequences of his cruelty. Instead, he rationalizes his behavior, viewing everything through the lens of aesthetic beauty rather than moral or emotional substance. Dorian's complacency is clear here. He feels no responsibility for his actions, nor does he reflect on the consequences of his cruelty. Instead, he rationalizes his behavior, viewing everything through the lens of aesthetic beauty rather than moral or emotional substance. This detachment from personal growth and responsibility only deepens as he continues down his path, more consumed by the fleeting pleasures of youth than the decay of his soul. To the aesthete, there is no distinction between moral or immoral acts, only those that increase or decrease one's happiness. Dorian understands now that his wish has come true, but it does not stir any reflection in him. He carries on with his shallow ways, enjoying the material pleasures of life. Nowadays, people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. As the painting of Dorian Gray grows uglier, Dorian stays untouched on the outside. but on the inside, his soul has begun to rot. Rot from a guilty conscience, rot from never seeing consequences for his actions, rot at shallow pursuits. He played stupid games and he won stupid prizes. Rot from the inside. He grew more and more enamored of his own beauty, more and more interested in the corruption of his own soul. Toward the end of the novel, Dorian proclaims to have a change of heart and tells Lord Henry he wants to be good now. I want to be good. I can't bear the idea of my soul being hideous. He has no real morals because he is an empty person, void of passion and care, the substance of souls. The painting drives Dorian mad. Dorian finally reveals the truth to Basil, taking distinct pleasure in horrifying the creator of the vessel of his shame. Basil is horrified that something he had once loved so much could turn into a thing of such evil. It is the face of my soul, overwhelmed with shame and then rage. Dorian murders Basil. Dorian slashes the painting with a knife, but only succeeds in killing himself. Hanging upon the wall, a splendid portrait of their master as they had last seen him, in all the wonder of his exquisite youth and beauty. Lying on the floor was a dead man, in evening dress, with a knife in his heart. He was withered, wrinkled, and loathsome of visage. It was not till they had examined the rings that they recognized who it was. Dorian Gray is the best case scenario. He doesn't have to inject a needle or switch every 7 days. He is still aware of his aging, but he's just not the host. Yet even before he knows, it corrupts him. Dorian never ages, so Dorian never evolves. He is never forced to look at himself beyond his outward appearance. The tragedy of old age is not that one is old, but that one is young. Dorian's refusal to confront the inevitable changes of age or the consequences of his actions allow him to stagnate, trapped in a perpetual cycle of shallow pleasure and superficial beauty. He becomes complicit in his pursuit of youth, avoiding the emotional and moral growth that aging should bring. This quote from Lord Henry is probably my favorite in the novel. Genius lasts longer than beauty. That accounts for the fact that we all take such pains to overeducate ourselves. In the wild struggle for existence, we want to have something that endures. And so we fill our minds with rubbish and facts in the silly hope of keeping our place. Here, Lord Henry suggests another sort of complacency, that people, in their struggle to secure their place in the world, overcompensate with education or intellect instead of beauty, under the belief that here they can preserve their relevance or worth. But that isn't true. Nothing can preserve relevance or worth. The most beautiful and smartest people die all the same. So it's not just about aesthetics, is it? It's distraction. Self-love is a beautiful sentiment, and one that I hope we all hold and practice. My issue with self-love in its current iteration on the internet is that it is still centering appearance, and so much of it is just marketing. All bodies are beautiful, beautiful enough to buy our soap or lingerie or shampoo or what the fuck ever. New forms of being a consumer feed this effect in us, our dysmorphia at various times. Of course, you should love what you look like, but what you look like should also be the least interesting thing about you. If this movie and novel teach us anything, it's that you need to develop yourself outside of your appearance, because no matter what you do, no matter what substance you take or what gay painter falls in love with you, you will age. In our obsessive pursuit of beauty, consideration for the future self is an afterthought. And tanning beds are the perfect example of this. This is something that we know absolutely for a fact hastens aging. Yet people still revert to it, opting for a good tan for the weekend over taking care of your skin long term. Not to even mention cancer. Much in the same way that Dorian's portrait starts to turn grisly and ghastly, Elizabeth bears the aging marks of Sue's whimsical decadence. The obsession with Botox, fillers, facelifts, all of it, genuinely makes me sick. And let me just say, I know it is none of my business what anyone is doing with their bodies, absolutely. But since I am here talking about this topic and cosmetic work is quite topical, I'm confident in its relevance here. Now, I'm not trying to be an ass when I ask this, but will the Kardashians' children know how to emote? Reading facial language is one of the great joys of an intimate relationship, and there are no facial intricacies I know quite like my mother's. She and I could have an entire conversation with just the muscles surrounding our eyes. Muscles that get frozen with injections meant to stop forehead wrinkles. I love physical expressions of self. I truly do. I love clothes. I love jewelry. I love hair. But I also believe that at this point, we have crossed the line with this new way that we think about our bodies as moldable. And need I remind you, it is a privilege to grow old. That's where my sympathy really dries up. I understand that there are pressures and expectations, but if your values are in the right place, a wrinkle serves as a testimony for all you have endured, of the stories you have to tell. If we are lucky, we are going to get to see the laugh lines on our friends' faces that we have laughed with. So how dare you erase that? I'm gonna fucking cry right now. Play that Brittany Broski vid.
What a privilege it is to get old, and to have experienced life, and to have your body reflect that you have lived.
The life that was to make his soul would mar his body. The life that was to make his soul would mar his body. You fuck with your body, you fuck with your soul. The invasion of social media into our inner lives has magnified the pressure to meet beauty standards, surrounding us constantly with images of the most conventionally attractive people manipulated to appear perfect at all times, but also giving us the tools to participate in this manipulation. It is so amazing to me, all these influencers posting their constant reminders that social media is fake with candid, raw pictures of themselves. But like, no, sweetie, you're fake. It is our willingness and complacency that I find most effective in these critiques and where I think their overlap is strongest. And to be clear, I am not telling you to reject aesthetics. I love aesthetics beyond art. I love aesthetics for myself. I love to decorate myself and feel beautiful. I don't think there is anything inherently wrong with that. Where I think we go wrong is making choices for our aesthetic selves above all. Demi Moore talks about her body issues in her harrowing autobiography, Inside Out, and her decision to do films that required so much of her body despite her discomfort. I need to be pushed outside my comfort zone. That if I was ever going to overcome my body issues, I had to confront them head on. I used to hate the way I looked. I cannot ever imagine having been able to record and upload myself like this a few years ago, even a year ago. And these feelings really pinnacled when I graduated college. I was, to put it simply, down bad. I hated my appearance. There was never a time I could have related better to the mirror scene. I was ashamed to leave the house because of what I looked like. So I deleted all my social media. This was not a noble act. I was not protecting my peace. I literally could not take it anymore. I felt like I was going insane. Now, did that immediately fix all my insecurities? No, obviously not. But I did find myself thinking about my appearance significantly less. I used to look in the mirror yearning for that Instagram face, seeing everything my face wasn't. When I wasn't constantly bombarding myself with images of celebrities and influencers, I wasn't thinking about it. So when I looked in the mirror, eventually I just saw a face. My face. And as I've gotten a few years under my belt, I've come to accept two things in this order. One, I'm never going to like how I look. So two, I should probably start working on something else. What I found when I started working on something else is new hobbies, discipline, passion, school, was that I actually do like what I look like. In fact, I love what I look like when it is not the most important thing about me, my defining feature, my ideal identifier, when what I look like is just another equally, if less, interesting aspect of who I am. I have found so much love in that freedom. And if aesthetics are your passion and interests, detach it from yourself. You should be able to enjoy fashion and art at a museum without pondering, am I the prettiest girl in the art museum right now? In Demi Moore's Hot Ones episode, Sean Evans asks her about a practical skill she has taken from a filming experience before. And Demi talks about G.I. Jane.
Kind of found this external strength, this unapologetic way of moving forward, and then realized that I wanted to take that and just move it all to the inside, that I didn't need to wear it. I could just be it.
If how you see yourself, or more importantly, how you feel in your body, is not something you can find love for, you can start that journey from a place of survival. Because what these two stories tell us is it will destroy you from the inside out. So now I ask you again, who are you if you look like nothing? Thank you so much for watching this video. I had been wanting to do a video about Dorian Gray, and then I saw The Substance and it was just so fucking perfect. So thank you to Coralie Fargeat for creating such an interesting movie. Thank you to Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley for such incredible performances. I know you guys are watching. I know this means so much to you. Thank you to my friend Rachel who let me borrow this wig. If you liked this video, please like this video. If you want to hear me yap some more, please subscribe. Go watch The Substance. Go read The Picture of Dorian Gray. Check out Demi Moore's autobiography. Get home safe now. I love you. Bye-bye.